Prof. Nadine Peterson, the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Education, the most important person here this evening, Prof. Sefotho. We are all here because of you, so you certainly are the most important here. Prof. Eberschen, Professor in Educational Psychology, High Commissioner of Lesotho. We have some very distinguished guests here this evening. High Commissioner of Lesotho, His Excellency Mr. Yafeta, Minister Councillor, Dr. Matubaku, and Councillor Ms. Sekamane. Welcome to all of you, senior leaders of the University of Johannesburg, this wonderful and amazing university, members of Senate, academics, distinguished guests, students. It's a very long list, ladies and gentlemen. We really are a full house here this evening, and of course everybody that joins us online. Sanibonani, goeienaand, good evening to Bella. It is indeed a great honor and a special privilege for me to welcome you to this professorial inaugural lecture this evening of Professor Maximus, that sounds very impressive, Maximus Sefotho, and Prof. Max. As I do so, I wish to express a warm word of welcome to his loved ones, his family, his near family, his extended family, his friends, his students, our special guests, and all the colleagues. This is indeed a proud and a joyful, yet a very landmark moment for all of us here. For you, Prof. Max, for you, Jay, for the higher education in South Africa and even beyond. I think our audience this evening is truly international. This is particularly noteworthy as the university, this amazing university, celebrates its 20-year anniversary this year. It's very difficult to believe that we are only 20 years old and what we have achieved in 20 years. Since the merger in 2005, we have come to exemplify how excellence and access are not mutually exclusive in higher education, and I think that's very, very important. In the spirit of innovation and social responsibility, UJ has indeed pushed boundaries and prioritized research, technological advancement, and community engagement, and we foreground societal impact in everything that we do. It is against this backdrop that we welcome you, Prof. Max, into the professoriate, a community of scholars dedicated to UJ's ethos of academic excellence while making a tangible impact in society. The inauguration of professors is a very public ceremony in which newly appointed professors are inducted into the office by the Vice-Chancellor or his delegate, as is the case this evening, and to deliver their inaugural address. The ceremony has roots in medieval universities, and it really serves multiple purposes. First, it is an expression of welcome and an entry for new professors joining the circle of colleagues who are already professors. Secondly, it provides a platform for professors to display their expertise in the discipline and to showcase their research. And I'm especially excited to listen to you this evening, Prof. In the colonial tradition subscribed to by many universities, assuming the role of professor refers to the gown and the cap, and that is what we see behind us here. Once we have listened to Professor Max and his address, the gown denoting the professorship will be formally placed over his shoulders. Today, we gather to witness Prof. Sefotho's entry into this illustrious community of scholars at this university. It celebrates his contribution to the discipline, his enormous contributions to the discipline, and ultimately his impact on society. Professors provide a university with its identity, with its character, with its academic legitimacy, and perhaps most important of these, with its integrity. The inaugural lecture is a rite of passage, following the confirmation of the appointment of a person as a professor. This evening, we will listen to Prof. Max, as the gown, so-called, the gown goes to town. And by this I mean that the power of the inaugural address is when the expertise is showcased beyond just the corridors of this university and higher education, but it really reverberates with society, and that is why this event is also live streamed, and everybody out there is invited to attend. It stands out as a moment of pride for the incumbent, for the family, for fellow scholars, for the faculty, for the university, and ultimately for society. In the past, several philosophers and scholars have defined universities using very narrow conceptualizations. For example, the search for truth, the search for universal knowledge, and even as instruments to serve the purpose of economy or being utilitarian in nature. And through our work and research at UJ, I hope that we can break out of these very narrow conceptualizations and reflect on the university as contributing to public good, working towards societal impact. Prof. Max, that's exactly what you are doing. What then, ladies and gentlemen, fellow academics, is the role of an intellectual? Edward Said, or Said, in one of his articles, defines the role of an academic or an intellectual as one who commands a vast knowledge of a specific discipline. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure that you will agree that that is Professor Max. One who is rigorous in the analysis of literature. Prof. Max, that is a hat that I think you wear every day. One who views being an intellectual as a vocation. That is you. And one who functions as a kind of a public memory to recall what is forgotten or ignored, to make the connections that are otherwise hidden, and to provide alternatives for mistaken policies that you've done often. It remains then for us as a university with a Pan-African vision to derive our mandate as intellectuals and as professors. And importantly, how do we embrace the role of a professor as a disruptor while continuing to be a flagship carrier of our discipline in our university? Prof. Max, I've often witnessed you where you really, as a gentleman, call people to task, always as a gentleman, always kind, always a soft word, but very to the point, and I really appreciate that. This evening we will listen to Professor Maximus Sefotho as one further step in his journey of being a professor. It never started this evening, and it will certainly not end this evening. This journey, which does not conclude once this lecture has been given. Notwithstanding, this inaugural lecture does create an opportunity for self-reflective pause in this journey of being a professor. Let me now invite the Executive Dean, Professor Peterson, to introduce Professor Max. I'm not sure whether we need an introduction, but Prof. Nadine, please, for that introduction. I thank you, Rialaborga, Nyabonga, baie dankie.
Thank you so much, and good evening to everyone. It gives me great pleasure, as Dean of this faculty, to read out a brief CV of Professor Max Sefotho. Professor Maximus Monaheng Sefotho is a seasoned scholar in the Department of Educational Psychology with a focus on career guidance and disability. His research and teaching work focus on career choice and construction within the sphere of contemporary careers, protean and boundaryless, as well as Hephapreneurship. Did I get it right, Prof. Max? I had to practice and break it up syllabically. a term that he coined. Prof. Sefotho is the current chairperson of the South African Career Development Association And in his quest for more knowledge about career development, he visited the European Centre for Career Guidance in Greece, La Universitat de A Coruña in Spain. Prof. Max is killing me tonight. Morelia in Mexico, and Buenos Aires, Argentina. Prof. Sefotho contributed to the development of the competency framework for career development practitioners and has developed an interest in the transition of differently abled persons from home through to the world of work. He's proficient in Spanish. You can see he's making me pronounce all these Spanish terms. Prof. Sefotho has been a member of the Latin American Network of Guidance Educators and a member of the Vocational Guidance Research Group based at the University of Carabobo in Venezuela. And if we have a chance today, I should ask him to sing a lullaby in Spanish. Sings beautifully. Multi-talented. Prof. Sefotho's research emphasizes career development and disability. Prof. Sefotho was also a research team leader from the University of Pretoria and is joined by many of his colleagues, senior colleagues here tonight, that conducted a study on visual impairment aimed at developing an advanced diploma in visual impairment studies, as well as being a co-editor of 2 books that are used in the program. Prof. Sefotho's teaching and research are supported by a strong background in the philosophy of education, which includes a specific focus on the philosophy of research to demystify terms such as philosophy, paradigm, ontology, epistemology, and axiology as applied to research. In 2018, Professor Sefotho edited the book Philosophy in Education and Research, African Perspectives, which he uses to conduct workshops to support postgraduate students to understand the philosophy of research. This work has yielded numerous publications. Prof. Sefotho has supervised to completion a number of master's and PhD students, and he also mentors emerging scholars and reverse mentors several colleagues who are full professors. I'm sure he does it with me too. Prof. Sefotho is currently the director of the Center for Neurodiversity at UJ and is also the chair of the Mpedi Family Scholarship on Neurodiversity Studies, which was launched last year. This scholarship was started by the Vice-Chancellor and Principal of UJ, Professor Letokwa Mpedi, who financially supports these scholarship students. Prof. Sefotho, in his quest for societal impact, has also co-founded and leads the Fathers of Children with Neurodiversity tribe. And as a dean, Prof, I'd like to say thank you for getting behind all my crazy ideas and finding expression in the way we try to serve neurodiversity in society. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. If it was by me, I would have worn a blanket. But I was told you have to be semi-formal, so I decided not to wear a tie that day and come humbled by your presence, all of you. I would like to align myself with the vote of thanks and protocol from you, Prof, and delve straight into my talk. The people who have come, I think a little bit late, are my grandchildren. There's 5 of them. They are all here. Thank you. I would like to start my story by saying that my academic journey began at the foot of Tabanadi Mele Mountain. And that is where I started having dreams and asking myself very difficult questions that I couldn't ask anybody. My talk today is going to cover 3 themes, as you see on the slides. The first one is echolocation, followed by neurodiversity, and yes, Madam Dean, you pronounced it very well, Hephapreneurship. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we are all born for a purpose. It then becomes our mission to find that purpose, to find the meaning of our existence, every one of us. While this may not be a question many ordinarily would ponder, I used to ask myself this complex question very early on in my life. That is why I always found myself baffled because I didn't have answers. We are told by literature that philosophers have tried to answer this question. And I then entered into a space of what one could call mind blindness. I was completely blank. In this lecture, I argue that we all must locate our purpose in life, as well as why we exist, the meaning of our existence. However, this may be difficult for many people. I must make a disclaimer that I use usually the term differently abled. I defended it through publications, and I can boldly say that I embrace it. Because in my world, the word disability is a negation of ability. If you look at how the word is composed, dis, the prefix, negates ability. That says we are marginalizing, we are stigmatizing those who are otherwise able, but in a different way. And they are able in their own way that we most of the time do not understand. The search for the meaning of my life was inspired by an old man who you see smoking a pipe. I was a young boy sitting looking at him, and my father used to call him names. They were friends, they were colleagues. You know, the men, in our communities, they use whatever language, but they were so close. But for me, it was an intrigue because I couldn't understand what I was looking at. However, the most important lesson that I got from this old man was that he could traverse the terrains of the village without any help from anybody. He had a horse, he would take him out to graze, and midnight, I don't know how he knew that it was midday, sorry. I don't know how he knew that it was midday. He would take it, water it, and then change the spot for grazing for it. How did he do it? I said that 3 terms. The first one is echolocation. He used what is called echolocation. Echolocation is the location of objects by reflected sound. Blind human beings and animals, some of them, echolocate objects, and they do that mostly to find food. So, the philosophy of existentialism became my compass in trying to echolocate, because it is a philosophy that says to us, we must find our own meaning in life. It is a philosophy that says, without finding your purpose in life, who are you? That became the focus that led me on to say, I'm going to do this by looking at what I learned from the old man. He used to, as you see, he smoked. Then he used to till the gardens around the village and get money so that he could go and buy the tobacco. But the most important thing that I observed, where he would have tilled the ground, he did it with such finesse that you would think somebody was raking after turning the soil, and yet there was no raking. That's how fine he used to do. And that says something to me. If we seriously consider visually impaired people as people without abilities, then we are lost. We don't understand them. They may understand the world better than we do. I am glad that my friends from the council are here also to listen to what I'm talking about today. So the search for meaning for my life continued to be inspired by this old man. Echolocation, therefore, of subjects, as I said, is reflected by sound. But what is important is that I find the following author very important. Bolea, I don't know if I pronounced the name well, who says to live without the quest of a personal truth is to refuse self-awareness. More exactly, it is to refuse to live at all. He goes on to say, existentialism emphasizes action over intention. It is the way of thought harmoniously combining with the way of being. Meaning, we are looking for our purpose to find the meaning of our being. As a being in the world, I found myself equally drawn to the field of career guidance and counseling, taking from the perspective of existentialism, which says, find meaning. So for me, it was the issue of being conscious that I'm searching for meaning, but at the same time, while I embraced existentialism, I looked at my own meaning in life, as well as linking to the meaning of differently abled people. Because most of the time, we often discriminate, stigmatize, and set them aside. And so, then my journey continued. I went all over the world. I think I've been through 7 universities, Prof. And trying to look for meaning is not a simple thing. But I ended up in Botswana at some point. My friend is here, Dr. Majuta. We were together when I was doing my postgraduate diploma in counselor education, and I thank him for having come to join us today. Then from there I moved and went to a city called Jalapa in Mexico, where I continued the journey of researching and finding out how do students at secondary school make meaning, how do they choose their career so that later on they could say, this is what our meaning, our life means. All the time, I am guided by the principle of social justice to say what we do as people who, in the profession of educational psychology or helping professions, claim that we help others. When we do, we need to help ourselves first so that we can help them. After being in the hands of this wonderful lady here, Professor Eberson, I must say that I always hear some of the people talk about good supervisors. I never had one better than her. The word echolocation marks the chapters of my thesis because she allowed me the space to be myself. And now, back to where I was talking about finding myself in Jalapa and guiding the students there. With her in PhD, we looked in depth at the issue of human echolocation. How do we help people to find their way through life? This is just a picture to show that most of the time it's humans, it's animals, they are all differently echolocating. So the story has been told that in 2018, under the leadership of Professor Ronel Ferreira, my very beloved friend, we started a journey of conducting a research around the country. We went through 5 provinces where we spoke to people to understand how best as the university can we help you thrive and make meaning of your life. And so, we know that like all animals, we did that. So, I conducted my research looking at the whole sphere of disability. And here you see that people with physical disabilities, blindness, and also who were neurodiverse were in the picture. And I became baffled at the resilience and the tenacity of each one of them who said, I want to find my purpose in life. I would like to emphasize that from then I was engaged for about 4 years with postgraduate students. I was the head of residence at the University of Pretoria, where we would go with these students to Umhlaba Uyalingana, otherwise known as Mseleni. It's on the border with Zimbabwe. To get there from Pretoria is about 8 hours. But the sacrifice was worth it because these children, at the time, technology was not that much with us, so we still had to fill the forms. So the students would help them to fill forms and choose universities. Prof. Nguni, we didn't only recruit for University of Pretoria, it was for the country. So you'll have to forgive us about that, but at least we were doing service for the country. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to get to, these were the books that were referred to, where we visited. This Center for Visual Impairment Studies is amazing. Prof, you have to visit and see. It's really amazing. And Mr. Mapanga is here with the colleagues. We had a workshop for principals not so long ago, and they had the opportunity to go and see the center. And later on, we invited them to our center too. We are jealous. So we invited them to our center, so they came to Soweto. Allow me to speak about my echolocation now towards neurodiversity, where after these publications that we saw from the work we did at UP, we were blessed to carry on the journey. Yesterday we had the opportunity of launching a book. I think Doctor is here. Can you stand, please, so that people see you? This is Dr. Otu. We co-published, we co-edited this book with him. Those in the profession will know that there's not much written in terms of career coaching. And Mr. Mukeki is here from the DHET. He is our leader in the career development services. And this is how much collaboration we bring in our space so that we are not the lone voices. And together we are working in terms of employability. And that is the space where we are saying, while we echolocate, find meaning, we need to help the youth to find their way. So the story of neurodiversity. The 2010 agenda aims at leaving no one behind through decent work for all, epitomized by high quality employment and for inclusive labor markets. That is what the program says. That is what the program claims. I perceive this Agenda 2030 as an intention that needs to be transformed into action. And that's where most of the time as society we fall short. I would like each one of us to take away the following 3 questions. I'm not going to answer them. The first question is, do human actions indeed leave no one behind? The second question is there really decent work for all, including the differently abled workers? The third question is, are the labor markets actually inclusive? As I see from the corners of my eyes, I see people shaking their heads to say no. So it means we do really have a lot of work to do. Now, earlier I showed a slide of the old man smoking a pipe, but also there was a young man next to him. My first encounter with neurodiversity was with him. He is a young man, now an adult. We were young then. He had what is called dysarthria. You'll have to forgive me for my language because sometimes I don't understand myself. But dysarthria is a neurological disorder that obstructs speech in a way that it would be understandable because the muscles have been affected somehow. And this young man, later on, echolocating through life, now looking into neurodiversity, he never relented. He told himself that he will be like everyone else, and that's what we want. So later on, we continued the journey with neurodiversity. I have, apart from Dr. Otu and the publication of this book, we have Dr. Charity Onyishi, who was actually my first postdoctoral fellow. When I came to UJ, that was the first time I ever experienced that. Thank you for the opportunity, because it allowed me to feel proud that, oh, I can supervise doctors too. Now, at a later stage, I was also given the opportunity to host a distinguished visiting professor in the name of Professor Lauren Lindstrom. She's online with us, listening because she wanted to hear if I'm going to say bad things about her. What a phenomenal lady. We actually met when I was still at UP, but the work that we started has to do with career transitioning, again, of differently abled people. You see that I'm playing around with the careers now. I'm not staying in the same space. Then my sister here, Prof. Diale, welcomed me in the space, and we continued the journey together. However, as I was doing this, I found the challenges are so many, because society needs to be de-schooled so that it can be re-schooled. With her, we pertain to a network called the Universitas 21, which is a network of universities around the world, but this universities, only the University of Johannesburg in all of Africa belongs to that. Can we give it a... Thank you. And then we collaborated also with La Universidad Católica de Colombia, later on introducing our students to the Latin American network that Prof referred to. Here is what is happening. In the space of career development, we have something called life orientation. Around the world, the best place to go is Latin America. If we want to understand life orientation, they do it with perfection. But because of language, sometimes it becomes impossible. I would like to go on and say that I've been given the opportunity to be director of the Center for Neurodiversity, and I thank Prof. Mpedi, and mainly my academic mother here. I've snatched away from you. Who was the one who said, this is the man who will lead the Center for Neurodiversity. Ladies and gentlemen, amongst us, we have Dr. Emil Haus. Dr. Emil Haus was my student at UP. Yes, thank you so much. He is himself autistic, but he echolocated, and he's now a PhD holder and a member of staff at UNISA. If we talk of social impact, I don't know what else. This is the living proof. Later on, from the center's perspective, Dr. Noshin is here. She's a graduate of this university, of the Department of Educational Psychology, and she's also phenomenal. While we were in the space of looking at neurodiversity, she asked a very pertinent question. Where are the fathers? And one morning at home, I was trying to relax on Saturday. She called and said, the fathers are here. You have to be here. I had to run from Pretoria. Sometimes I don't know whether I was or not, but anyway, I got there. But this gentleman here, in a blanket and a hat, is one of the fathers of children with neurodiversity, the brainchild of Dr. Noshin. They are our pride because we always bash fathers and say, fathers don't do much. And yet, they are here to teach us that some of them have done a lot of work, and they have done a lot of work in a way that it allows us, I'm rushing because I'm looking for their picture. It allows us, oh, it's not there, sorry, I don't know what happened. It allows us the space to see, I don't know if this can be shown because this is important, to see the work that the fathers have done. After we started, because of the pain, because of the frustration, because of how many of them are suffering financially, emotionally, socially. You know, as I was talking about action and intention, many of them will tell you that we have families, but are we accepted? Our children, are they accepted by our family? That says, as society, we have a big role of educating. That's why I was talking about deschooling society so that we can reschool ourselves. So this group of fathers right now have embarked on training other fathers. Their idea is to eventually develop a model where they themselves, those who are not employed, can be employed, and eventually employ children with neurodiversity. This is because most of the time employers might say, we don't understand. But as Dr. Emil will tell you, if they don't know what they are missing because we lose a lot of intelligence there. I would like to say that, ladies and gentlemen, one of them developed what is referred to as cycling for neurodiversity. We were at Vostolas here and trying to also create an aspect of allowing the youth to mingle with other youth, because people with autism will tell you when they are in their own space, they are in their own space, and they may not want. But we wanted that socialization part of it. The young man that you see here, oh, it's there back. Okay. He is so happy. You can see the smile in his voice, in his face, because he was feeling included. He was feeling that something is happening. We have many publications through another doctoral fellow, Dr. Nettie, there she is. We have phenomenal postdoctoral fellows, ladies and gentlemen. They really are very productive. And Madam Dean, you can be proud that we are trying our best. Now, I have this funny term that people want to know about, Hephapreneurship. I'm going to close by saying, in Lesotho and at Dijafita, we are told that when a couple gave birth to twins, one of them would have to be killed. Now, when I was doing my PhD with Prof, we normally look at for what is called a theoretical framework or a conceptual framework. I am a go-getter. I didn't find anything anywhere. We searched for Ndidi. He did not represent for me a worker with disability. But as I said, I went to Greece, and I found in Greek mythology a personality called Hephaestus. he was born with his feet back to front. And because of the purity of the gods, the family decided also that we are going to have to kill him. So instead of pure luck, I guess, because the mother was charged with throwing him off the cliff, and as she did that, she hurled him far, and he fell into the sea, and of course, the baby would float offshore. And fortunately, there was an old couple that lived under the cave. They raised the boy as their own. So he was known as the god of fire because of the finesse with which he could do artisanal work. And then I decided to take that, his name, and coin it with entrepreneurship to come up with a model to say, what would happen if in South Africa, every mall that we have in Southern Africa, in Africa, we have a section where differently abled people are given the space. Instead of them being given the usual disability grant, we give them the space to say, this is where society is supporting you so that you can make meaning of your life. I would like to stop here, Madam Dean, with your permission.
Good evening, everybody. This man, we sat at each other's feet and learned from each other together. So allow me to honor him. In his African dream, there's a new tomorrow. In his African dream, there's a future we can follow. Iphuphu lethu le-Afrika. Our dream is his dream, and his dream is our dream. This is not a man that you pin down and force into particular spaces. This is a man that you allow to spread his wings and to give reality to the dreams that he has. A couple of weeks ago, I read an article in the University World News by Professor Bertram Fielding, a Dean of Science at the Stellenbosch University. And he wrote what society expects of a doctorate graduate or a professor. And he argues that somebody with a doctorate, somebody who's a professor, like we are honoring tonight, our Professor Maximus, is somebody who will lead innovation, somebody who will manage complex systems, and somebody who will plan for strategy, for strategic change and transformation. In what Professor Maximus just presented, all of that was evident. Even more so, in the book Authentic Happiness that Professor Seligman wrote, he's the father of positive psychology, he argues that happiness is evident, well-being is evident in three ways. Somebody who can live a pleasurable life, I'll talk about that now, somebody who can live a meaningful life, and someone who is able to live an engaged life. What is a pleasurable life? A pleasurable life is somebody who can sing, somebody who can gather with others, somebody who enjoys style, somebody who enjoys beauty and aesthetics, somebody like Prof. Maximus. A pleasurable life. What is an engaged life? Seligman argues that an engaged life is somebody who uses his signature strengths, his unique talents, to be the best version of himself that he can be. How do we see that in Professor Maximus? We see that in a man who knocks on a door of women and says, I would like to do a PhD with you, and sells himself in such a magnificent way that I am excited to take on new work and to take a journey with him. Signature strength is to be somebody who had the observational value as a young person to observe an elder who's blind and see the value of that life and being inspired with that to use his intellect, his heart, his social skills to engage in a road where he could graduate, but then also let that graduation work further. And that brings us to the level of a meaningful life, which Seligman argues is the highest level of happiness. As I say that, I get shivers. A meaningful life is when you use your signature strengths for the better of others. So Professor Maximus never stops at the level of himself. For him, it was not enough to get that PhD. For him, it was a PhD that needed to work to help others. That PhD was used in meaningful ways to participate in establishing a much needed space for career guidance in South Africa, where many, many young people do not have access to affordable services for career guidance. That is now there because of the endeavors where he used his signature strengths in a meaningful way. We see it in the center. We see it in this dream for working with dads with neurodiversity to be sure that young people who are differently abled and specifically neurodiverse children will be employable, to have that freedom. All of that comes from the man who he is. I also, in the time that I've known him, absorbed the humanity that forms part of who he is. A man who could sit with Malepole, his wife, with my parents, and absolutely enthrall them with stories of who he is and what his vision is for Africa. Motivating elders, Afrikaans elders in their 70s, to dream this dream with him. Professor Maximus lives a life of meaning and purpose. His dream is one that we can all live. You may have read up on blue zones. Blue zones there are 5 regions in the world where they found unusual unusual concentrations of centenarians, people who are more than 100 years old. He's going to be one of those people. Because the indicators of those people are people who know how to connect, people who have the right outlook in life and live with purpose, and people who are able to move naturally and eat wisely. Professor Maximus, you enrich our lives and we follow your dream. Kia leboga.
I may ask your wife just to join us as well. In the middle. I want you to help us just to wrote this fantastic person. Okay. This is not an easy thing to get on, I can tell you. The more you do it, the less you get it right.
Prof challenged me that sometimes I sing, and allow me to sing in tongues. que lejos estoy del suelo donde he nacido. Inmensa nostalgia invade mi pensamiento. Al verme tan solo y triste, cual hoja al viento, quisiera llorar, quisiera morir del sentimiento. Today I have a special request. My friend here is going to translate what I've just said, because Prof all the time says, "What have you said?" I said, "It's a secret." But please tell them the secret, sir.
It's just a story of love. Very nice music. I don't know where it's from. Mexico, from Colombia, from Mexico, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure, friends, that we can all agree that that was absolutely fantastic and really very, very moving. I must confess that my background is zoology, so when I saw the word echolocation, I was very excited because it really spoke to, to my zoology and my training as well, and how people can actually get about and learn how to echolocate is just fantastic, and how adaptable we are is really fantastic. Prof. Max, I always spoke about differently abled because I believe that people that are differently abled are often more abled than what other people are. I then Googled the term and I looked it up a little bit, and there was quite a bit of pushback on the internet about using the term differently abled. And I briefly considered that I would not use it, but I will. I will absolutely use it, and I will not stop using differently abled. Prof. Max, you really are a gentle giant and a gentleman, and I've said that before. I think you're an absolute gentleman, but at the same time so disciplined and so steadfast and so willing to stand up for what is right, irrespective of who are in front of you, and I think that really is commendable. I'm very grateful for people like Professor Max, who really cares and who really goes out to make a difference. Our Vice-Chancellor was very firm and he campaigned on this, very firm when he was appointed as the VC, about foregrounding societal impact in everything that we do. How if we sit in ivory towers, it really means nothing if there are not people out there or societies out there that actually benefit from it. And I think your work makes such a big difference and such a big impact, and you really embody that societal impact. I recently heard or saw some statistics around how the number of research papers increase. Every day there's 3 new journals, let alone, the hundreds of papers that are actually published in them. How the number of papers increase, but the impact of our work decrease. And you are absolutely not there. I mean, the impact of your work is phenomenal. And then lastly, I must give a shout out to this wonderful and this amazing university, and how proud I am to be part of a university that cares, to be part of a university that employs people like Professor Max, and that allows people like Professor Max to do what he does best. Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, there would be something to eat that Prof. Nadine kindly is sponsoring for us next door, so I invite you afterwards just to allow Professor Max to go out first, just so that there's a time for him to say hello to everybody and then to join us next door. I must say that our STH, or our is part of our student training. It's our school of tourism and hospitality. So it is managed by our university and with our students that actually work there also. So please join us afterwards for a little bit, something to eat and something to drink. Prof. Max, to you.